Hello, my name is Steve Riley. Welcome to Roma Locuta Est Considers. This is a production of RomaLocutaEst.com blog and website. What is RomaLocutaEst.com? You may well ask. It's a wee humble blog that the world little notes, nor will it long remember, but it is devoted to apologetics and commentary on Catholic topics, current events, and general Christian apologetics. If you're interested, I do write fiction as well. I have a book that's out called Pia Fidelis. It's a book one of a trilogy called Pia Fidelis, and it's set in the Roman Empire of the 4th century, and it covers the period of the Arian crisis. However, the topic of the current series here on Roma Locuta Est Considers is the Benepapist controversy. And in regard to that, I've written a book called Valid, the Resignation of Pope Benedict, the case against the Benepapists. And the material of this series comes from that book, as well as from other articles on my blog. Okay, so this is episode 2 of Roma Locuta Est Considers Benepapism. Over the next 5 videos, there'll be a 5-part series on the Munus versus Ministerium. What I'm trying to do in all my videos is ideally and hopefully to try to keep them short as possible, to kind of chop it up, make it a veritable charcuterie board of tasty-sized morsels that you can easily digest and would like to come back for more. And if you do like it, please, as they say, hit the thumbs up. If you don't like it, hit the thumbs up. No, seriously, if you don't like it, feel free to hit the thumbs down, and I'm sure you will. Okay, and just as a quick refresher from last episode, where we had the introduction to Benepapism, we started with the Declaratio, which was the Benedict's instrument of resignation, written document. You can find this on the Vatican website. And this is the key portion of the Declaratio, in which Benedict states his reasons for resigning. He states here that he's resigning with full freedom. He declares that he renounces the ministry of the Bishop of Rome. He says he does it in such a way that the See of Rome, the See of St. Peter, will be vacant, and a conclave to elect a new pontiff will have to be convoked by those whose competence it is. So that's the beginning of the controversy. But it may be surprising that is the beginning of a controversy. As I noted last time, it seems exceedingly clear what that means, but often throughout history, things which seem exceedingly clear are just the beginning of problems. If we look at the Declaratio, we saw Benedict renounced the ministry of the Bishop of Rome, successor of St. Peter. That's a clear reference to the papacy. He said he renounces it in such a way that the See of Rome, the See of Peter, will be vacant. If the See of Rome, the See of Peter is vacant, that means there's no pope. You can't have a pope and then say the See of Peter is vacant. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction. It's not possible. But he declared the See would be vacant. He also went on to declare that a new conclave would have to be called to elect a new supreme pontiff. Why do you elect a new supreme pontiff? Well, because the old one is gone. He's vacated the See of St. Peter. So it's clear that Benedict, in renouncing the ministry of the Bishop of Rome, successor of Peter, in such a way that the See of St. Peter would be vacant, it necessarily follows that Benedict renounced the papacy. That should be clear. So up here, like I said, we read the Declaratio already, and the Benepapists, though, instead of just kind of accepting it, say, hey, wait a second. They raise an objection. Hey, wait a moment. And they point to a couple things. One, they note that in the Latin of the Declaratio, which I only produced this part here, but for the word ministry, the Latin word used there in the Declaratio is Ministerium. And the Benepapists are then quick to bring up Canon 332, subparagraph 2, which reads as follows. It says, if it should happen that the Roman Pontiff resigns his munus, it is required for validity that he makes the resignation freely and that it be duly manifested, but not that it be accepted by anyone. So the Benepapists say, aha, wait a second. The canon says he has to resign the munus, but if we look at the Declaratio, Benedict renounced the Ministerium. So according to the Benepapists, there's a problem here. So we've just seen what the problem is, right? That the Benepapists say Canon 332 says if it happens that the Roman Pontiff resigns the munus, that's what they say is required, whereas the Declaratio, as they point out, they say, or it actually does say, that Benedict resigned the Ministerium. He does not use the word munus. So from that, in the coming series, in the next 5 parts, this is part 1 of a 5-part look at this debate over the munus in the ministerio, or ministerium is the form, one of the other forms of the word ministerio. We'll look at 3 objections that are lodged by the Benepapists. The first objection is Pope Benedict did not specifically renounce the munus. He did not use the word munus. Okay, so we'll discuss that now in part 1. This is episode 2, so that's what this video will be about. And then we'll take up in other videos, we'll look at the next objection, which is an appropriate word or words were not used in place of the munus. Well, it turns out, if you look at objection 1, there are some Benepapists who say he has to use the word munus. He has to use the word munus, and he didn't. Other Benepapists will argue that, and this is pretty much the leading Benepapists, would say that no, he didn't have to specifically use the word munus. He could have used some other word, such as the word papacy, but some other word that entails or includes the meaning of the word munus. So that's objection 2. An appropriate word or words were not used in place of the munus. So that will be, this objection will be broken up into different parts, but replies will be, and that will be covered in parts 2, 3, and 4, which correspond to episodes 3, 4, and 5 of this video series. And then lastly, the third objection is Pope Benedict XVI only renounced the exercise of the Petrae Munus, but he still retained his office, his Petrae Munus. So here the objection is based on the theory that, well, he used the word ministerio, ministerium, and that the meaning there is having to do with the function. So he kind of renounced the function. He renounced the doing of the Petrae Munus, but not the munus itself. So that would be objection 3, and we'll consider that in part 5 of this series and in episode 6 as well. Okay, so let's get right to it. So the objection in this video is that Pope Benedict did not specifically renounce the munus. Okay, so what about that? Well, in reply, first of all, there's no canonical formula for a papal resignation. There's nothing in canon law that says, or anywhere actually, the magisterium, that says what a pope must say to resign the papacy validly. There's just simply no formula for it. Then the Benepapists will say, well, wait a second, it says here in Canon 332, the Roman Pontiff, when he resigns his munus. Right, okay, but if you look closely at Canon 332 here, subparagraph 2, there's only 2 things that are said to be required in this canon. It says, it is required for validity. Okay, here it comes. What's required for validity? Well, that he makes his resignation freely and that it be duly manifested. Those are the only 2 requirements. And it's not even, and it also goes on to say, but it's not even required that it be accepted by anyone. And here the Benepapists are already violating the very canon they want to point to, because they're all running around saying they don't accept the resignation. So they're in violation of the very evidence they wish to bring forward. But again, the point here, though, is that two things are required for validity: that it be resigned freely, it's duly manifested. Nothing says that there's some specific requirement for saying the word Munus. So again, there's just no requirement for the word Munus to be used at all. Okay, and then continuing on with reply, some additional evidence. Pope Celestine V was a pope who became pope and actually resigned being pope in 1294 AD. He resigned, and he taught. Well, back then there had been actually a controversy over whether or not a pope could resign, really for no basic reason other than he didn't want to be pope anymore. So to resign, there had been other popes who had left office beforehand, but he was the first one to kind of resign without any real cause or reason being pressed upon him. He had been a hermit, I believe it was, before he had become pope. He became pope, and he was just not up to the task, and so he decided he didn't like this. I'm going home, back to my cave. I'm going to be a hermit. But because it was a canonical question, he had to actually kind of basically teach that a pope could resign before he did so. Then he resigned, and he resigned using the word papacy. It's actually in his resignation document. I think he said, I cede the papacy, and he used the word, and here's the Latin right here. So he taught it. He used the word papacy itself, not Munus. He used the word papacy. And then Pope Boniface VIII, who was his successor, in a canon law collection called the Liber Sextus, he had all that put into the Liber Sextus. So here's an image on the left side of the screen here. It's from the Liber Sextus, and it's I'm going to just highlight right here. There's a whole section about it, but right here I think it actually says, a Roman pontiff can resign the papacy freely. I don't know if you can see that well, but that's what it says. So here we have ancient canonical proof that basically the word papacy does not need to be used. So putting all that together, we had our objection. Pope Benedict did not specifically renounce the Munus. And the reply to that objection is, as we've seen, there's no canonical formula for papal resignation. None is required. There is no requirement that the word Munus be used at all. We saw that by looking at the very canon 332, subparagraph 2. There's no requirement for the word Munus to be used. It's not found. That requirement is just simply not found in the canon. And then finally, we looked at the case of Pope Celestine. What he did, he resigned the papacy using the word papacy. Here's the Latin again. And that was entered into the Liber Sextus by Pope Boniface VIII. And it's clear from that neither the word Munus nor any specific formula is required. So what does it all mean? With regard to the objection, Pope Benedict did not specifically renounce the Munus. Well, objection fails. I should have like a stamp sound effect for that. Okay, and here again, I just include, for the benefit of the viewer, just different resources that might be out there if you're interested in the topic or interested in the arguments against Benepapism. In terms of books, for the moment, my book is the only thing out there at the moment on the side of goodness and niceness. There are about 7 or 8 books out there arguing for Benepapism, but right now mine is the only one against it. Then, of course, in terms of articles against Benepapism, I have a bunch on my blog, Roma Locuta Est. Ryan Grant has an article out there. Father John Rickard has some great articles out there, and Dr. Edward Fieser does as well. Okay, so ends episode 2. That was part 1 of the Munus versus Ministerium debate. Look forward to the coming of part 2 of 5 on the Munus versus Ministerium. So that will be coming to a theater near you soon, I hope. Again, thank you for your time and attention, and I thank you for watching. Thank you.